Today's podcast is brought to you by Progresso Talent Partners, who for more than 25 years have successfully delivered interim and permanent leadership talent to transform businesses. To hire the talent you need to enable your business to thrive, visit www.progressotalent.com today. Greg Blazewicz is the CEO and founder of SALESmanago, the customer engagement platform used by more than 2,000 companies in 50 countries, including many well-known global brands such as Starbucks, Vodafone, Lacoste, KFC, New Balance and Victoria's Secret. From a standing start in 2011, the business now employs more than 350 people and has enjoyed more than 3,000% growth over the last 5 years. A finalist in EY's Entrepreneur of the Year, he is the author of the widely popular book Marketing Automation Revolution and a university lecturer, playing an active role in helping and educating other tech founders. So what's the story behind the story? Without further ado, let's get into it. Greg Blazewicz, welcome to the Extrology podcast. Great to have you as our guest, and really looking forward to getting stuck into our conversation this afternoon. But as is customary with Extrology, we like to build a bit of context and start with those early years. So my first question is, as always, where did you grow up, and therefore what was childhood like for you?
Hello, Lee. Nice to meet you. Very happy we can have a conversation. So I come from very small town in Poland, from very poor family, kind of working class people, which heavily invested in my education and kind of really sort of helped me to grasp the opportunities I could have for my life, right? So that I had a really, really nice childhood, I think. I, got into sports early ages. I played handball for like 10 years. When I was like 15, I was playing the Polish national handball, junior handball team. So that really sort of influenced my kind of thinking about teamwork, competition, kind of orientation towards achieving goals.
How did you get into handball? Because was that at school? Was it a club outside of school?
Yeah, that was a club in town, the only one that was actually doing something serious with kids. And handball is really like a Polish national kind of sport. We would have in recent years much more success in handball than in football, for example, right? So it has very good PR in Poland compared to like football players, right? It's more like it's the Polish rugby, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So nice analogy. Who were your heroes as a child? Who did you look up to?
When I was a kid, my heroes were like my older friends, I would say. Like we lived in a block of flats, and I was always looking up to older kind of colleagues that were more experienced, right, and they were sharing their views of the world. So we were in a communist kind of it was kind of outside, quite gloomy, because it was the early 80s, 1980s, and and Poland was just in a communist bloc at this time. So I don't think we would have this kind of access to like this global, I would say, culture, right? So you would rather follow something you could actually really feel that was something like kind of first-hand experience, which was just older guys right around you.
It must have been, though, to your point, growing up in 80s Poland, but then to see the enormous transition of the collapse of the former Soviet Union, the Berlin Wall coming down, 1989. So I mean, how did that start to change things from your perspective?
Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful things that at some stage started to happen. When I was like 15, suddenly things really they were turning in a completely different direction in Poland. And
how did that feel? How did that feel for you and your friends?
Yeah, that was just people were started to be extremely excited about new times really coming in, right? And then people just started to see that their lives might suddenly their lives started to just change like significantly, because people were giving more opportunities. People started to look at their professional development, in a very serious way, right? And there were a couple of waves, right? So when I was 15, people that were like 30, they were jumping on this kind of first train of kind of success and really grabbing the first fruits of transformation. When I was like 20, some of the people around me, and maybe me too, we were thinking, oh, maybe we were born like, 10 years too late. But it was not really true, because it was still a lot of things going on and things changing. And I think still until today, Poland is a land really of opportunity, where whenever you're ambitious, you're hungry, there's a lot of things you can achieve, right? So that is really contributing to the, I think, unique atmosphere we have in our company today, right? I mean, it's so vibrant. People they truly believe, they can change their lives, right? So and that's why I felt in my life, when you look at this, if you connect this kind of transformation of Poland to something new, that meant that I was always just, really, seeing a lot of opportunities, and I was always given a chance, right? And that's that I was never refused, actually, never in my life. And that's the kind of mindset I would have till today. And that's kind of primary, I would say, value of the business I run, that everybody should be given a chance, basically, right? So today in a company that we have, the average age is 27, and it's just, it's just crazy. Everybody wants to grow up, right? And grow professionally. It's exciting. And I think what played really, really important role to where we are today is that we are really benefiting from this, transformation of how Poland is perceived, how Polish business is perceived, how Polish managers are perceived, right? It's, my father, when I was like 15, would go to Germany to earn life, right? To some like German Bauer, picking up grapes and tobacco leaves, and after 30 years have passed, and I'm employing German guys, to Poland, right? That this is explaining, how it all changed. When I was 20, I would travel for every holidays to London, and I was washing dishes and working in construction as demolition man in London, basically, right? And basically doing all those really heavy weight jobs, right? And now I'm coming, after 20 years, right? I'm coming to London, like in a completely different role, which when I was 20, I don't think I would really imagine that this could be the potential scenario.
When did you first, certainly well, so if you look when you set business up in 2011, if we go prior to that, you enjoyed, certainly from a more corporate perspective, a meteoric rise as a marketeer, and assume responsibilities as marketing director of sizable entity. When did you first start to show an interest in business, and why marketing?
So when I finished my secondary school, I didn't have any like big plan for my life, like probably as many people which are 20 years old. And I actually decided that I will enjoy my studies, and I decided to study English literature. I loved books. I loved reading. I spent, a lot of time basically surrounded by people reading books, right? And I thought that, I want to continue that. And I went to study English literature in the Polish university. I studied all those kind of, what you guys know in England, Chaucer, Shakespeare, right? And that was really exciting. And this is what sort of attracted me to London and to England. And coming there for holidays, I felt really good there. Had a lot of friends. But when I was after third year of this of this literature studies, I thought that maybe this is not something that will give me, some opportunities for the rest of my life. And I went to study basically business at some French school, and that was École de Commerce de Toulouse. So I get my second MA. First MA was in English. The second MA was in French. And to have this French MA, basically in business, that the requirement was that I would complete some internships, basically in business, and I just took advantage of a couple of relationships I had, at this stage, which brought me first to like for like 8 months to New York, to some marketing agency, and then for another like 6 months in London. And I came back and I said, I know so many things about marketing, right? I mean, let's try to deploy that somehow in my professional life, right? And that's, and this is how it all kind of started. It was growing on me, really. I felt, really good in marketing world. This is how I actually get into the first and only actually kind of job at corporation, which was the company name is Comark, and it's today like largest Polish IT company. And I started as a kind of intern, and over like 3 years I was like a CMO there. So pretty fast kind of track with a lot of stories around, but that's how it all basically happened.
When did you first start to think that perhaps owning your own business or starting your own business, and we'll come on to SALESmanago, but was there a point at which you recall that you think, actually, I knew this is what I wanted to do?
I think I wanted to be an entrepreneur very early, even before I started this corporate job. And I did try to set up some businesses prior to that, when I was basically studying. So that was something that was driving me. So sort of, taking things in my own hands, earning money. I would not contradict. I was driven by money there. Just, being independent was important to me. Right. And actually I had no other choice basically to be independent. Right. So that was very early noticed that this is something that is really making me excited. But then I noticed that probably, if I want to go to business, that I would need more experience, right? That's sort of that's why I came up with this studying business, then came up with actually going to internships and going to corporate job basically to get closer to what's real business life about, right? When I started this corporate career in marketing, and after like very, very, very early also I noticed that probably this is not like the most serious job I would have, right? The marketing in like 20 years ago I don't think that was really serious, and
In what sense? Why do you think that is?
I thought that I was in marketing, like kind of dealing with going to trade shows, printing brochures, and kind of helping other guys rather than doing taking owning some part of like serious business. I was surrounded by IT guys, by sales guys, by finance guys. They were all doing like their own fantastic jobs, and marketing was like nobody knew what the guys was doing. So I decided to leave that job after 3 years. I got into some kind of tango with headhunters, and they offered me another job outside of Poland. And I the funny thing was that the funny and most important probably event of that part of my life was that actually I accepted one role, and the next day I wasn't supposed not to be at work. I informed my CEO that I will not be at work, and I went on a plane to Prague to sign the agreement. And I went on a plane basically, and it turned out that my CEO is sitting next to me on the same plane, right? And well, that was not a very nice flight, to be honest, because the CEO, founder of that company, was quite straightforward to express his kind of feelings about all what's going on. So I made complete fool of myself. I went to Prague to this company. I told them I'm not signing the agreement. I came back the other day, the next day, and actually sat with that CEO and just really shared my concerns about, how I felt about marketing. And he said, so why can't we change this, right? And we started like a huge IT project of like building a new CRM internally for that company that would connect marketing with sales, right? And that project turned out to be extremely, extremely successful, which then gave me another promotion to that company, to be a CEO of another company and that group. I helped in selling that company to another business. The CEO made like big money, and I thought that maybe after that was like really already me being there 10 years. And I said, okay, so that I think that sort of looked like the end of very nice story already. And I felt really ready to go back to this entrepreneurial kind of thinking. And I set up my own business.
So that's purely by chance, purely fortuitous? The CEO, you're resigning, you're flying to Prague, you're signing a deal to take on a new role. It's purely by chance. He sat next to you on the same flight. That's just one of those kind of sliding doors moments in life, isn't it? Where you just think this conversation was supposed to take place. When you look back, I guess at the time it would have been deeply uncomfortable, as you pointed out, but it's kind of serendipity at play in the grandest sense.
Yeah.
And what changed for you? I'm fascinated that, to your point around, and I put words in your mouth, but marketing felt like, printing brochures and doing trade shows. And what changed your perspective as to what marketing could and should be?
I felt that I want to be a serious partner for my CEO, right?
And did you know how you could make that happen? Accepting your premise around wanting that, but in terms of what the specifics, what you would do to achieve that, how did you go about acquiring that knowledge?
Yeah. So I was just observing the world, and I thought that we can deliver a lot of value as marketing team by being basically, connected to the sales process, right? Taking part of that sales process on us, right? Which would make the sales guys, have better conversions, sell more, focus really on the stuff that they should focus, right? So this is what would actually happen. So we convinced our management team, and that was really 20 years ago. And that's kind of, even when you look at today, how this business was even from the global perspective, how this business was developing. I think that we made quite innovative thing here in Poland that was innovative, even from the perspective of really what was happening in international corporations in the US. This is something I have learned a couple of years ago when I noticed, what really the true stories of other businesses, which you can find in some sources. But I think that we were kind of doing at this stage quite innovative really things, but making this marketing team be not a cost center, but a revenue generation center. That was kind of my idea really 20 years ago. So when I left the company and I thought that actually running my own business and exploiting that idea of making these marketing teams as serious partners for their CEOs, creating value for the companies, right? That could become a great motive for a company. And this is, what we are doing till today. So when you look at, at our value proposition after all those years, our current value proposition that we have worked out with the team is still basically the same. It's about helping marketers to become trusted revenue partners for their CEOs, right? It's just still playing the same game, really.
So that was the inspiration behind SALESmanago. So you go back to 2011. What is it that you set out? Well, you can't, I guess, in many ways with your value proposition, your answer. I was going to say, what is it that you set out to achieve? Let me ask a different question. How did you get started?
Yeah, so we first basically, because I didn't want to, Poland is still on this kind of growth path in terms of the development of the VC market, private equities, right? And really 2011 in Poland, you would not find just, something that would resemble anything we have today, right? So to avoid basically burning my own savings, too much of that savings, and to avoid looking for money out on the market, I started with marketing services. It was just doing services for companies, getting closer to those companies, and all the revenue we generated, we were investing in creating software, right? So that was the kind of the first initial point. And because the concept was that we were offering around software was so new, we'd prefer to first go with the service and then make the software be a little part of that project, right? So we were always just putting a bit of the software, basically not to scare too much those owners of the companies we were working for. And then, after 2 years, that software would become bigger and bigger part of that business. And suddenly it's 100% of that business. There's no service there.
Had you a tech co-founder when you started? Because I often, I talk with founders a lot that the biggest challenge, if you're not coming at life from a tech perspective, albeit there's an understanding, but you're not a developer, right? So had you someone to sit alongside that, you were creating the vision as to what it was you were looking to achieve, but the practical operation into the weeds of making it happen was being dealt with. How did that play out?
Yeah. So we were dealing with these marketing services and building software, and suddenly, obviously, those challenges around software became very, very serious. And I did met Conrad, who was played like extremely important part in taking care of basically the tech parts. I was really about business development, and he took responsibility for the product, right? And we worked very closely together for like 8 years, 7-8 years, basically, right?
How did the two of you meet? Was it a formal process? Was it a recruitment process? How did the two of you get together?
So that happened by that was facilitated by my very close friend from my small village outside of Krakow. We just had a lot of conversations, and he was watching me struggling with these early stages, early months of that company, and then he knew I'm crazy, and he was expecting that finding a proper somebody that would fit my character would be really challenging. But once he just came and said, okay, I have the guy, right, and you should meet, and that's how it all started.
Fantastic.
And he has right now like professional recruitment agency in Krakow, so he knew actually what he was doing, so that wasn't just like not pure accident, really.
Yeah. And with the benefit of hindsight, if you look back to those very early days, is there anything that you would have done differently?
No, I'm not that kind of person, right? I think that it's kind of myth. I think that if I knew 10 years ago what I know today, I would be better off. I think I would be complete failure, right? With that knowledge, you have completely different mindset. Your knowledge at some specific point in time is basically making make the right decisions, the best decisions you can actually take, right? So I think that what some kind of limitations of knowledge, right, at some stage might be quite helpful, right? You don't overthink, right? You take simple decisions, somehow play by ear. My knowledge kind of entry kind of level was that after 10 years in corporation, I had the other idea apart from helping marketers. I thought that I would do everything to sort of contradict everything I have seen in the corporate world, right? So for many years, I would say no HR in my company, right? Some crazy employee benefits, right? No sports cards, no medical cards. That was just kind of a big part of a big kind of story, right? No coaching, no training. Because this was about hey, let's work with seriously thinking kind of young people, right? If you think seriously, if you can't motivate people either are internally motivated or not, right? If you want to if people are hungry, they will basically learn anything. They need to do the job right, and you just they don't need to get this from as a kind of gift or an offer from the organization they work for, right? So that was pretty kind of idealist kind of approach that worked extremely well because we were attracting people, very nice people, great people that took this company forward. So we were loved by half of the kind of people, and we were hated by the other kind of half, right? And that a lot of things were happening due to that, thanks to that kind of two sort of contradicting kind of parts, right? We were seeing exactly who we are, what's our mentality. We were attracting, great people. And now, it's all changing, right? Because over this 10 years, we have become a little kind of corporation, right? So we kind of switching to this kind of new mode. We're transforming to become, more structured, more process oriented, because otherwise you cannot scale, right?
That's an interesting debate because I often have this conversation with founders as to, you're at a size of which now, as I understand it, you've got more than 2,000 customers in 50 countries, more than 350 employees. So to your point, you're a sizable corporation now. How do you retain that, if you like, the secret sauce that made the culture special and attracted people from the get-go? And some of that would have been based on not wanting, and I suspect probably as well shouting quite loud about the sort of, we don't have the corporate handrails here. The guards are off. We can do what we like. We're innovative. We're agile. We're dynamic. But you get to a point where you start to need some degree of systems, process, infrastructure, guidelines that you might scale. How do you retain that balance between retaining culture, but that ultimately acknowledging that things you have to change, you have to move forward?
Yeah. So I think that transformation starts with, really looking at, looking at the partners that you take this transformation on. And I think that what happened last year in November, we managed to attract our company two great private equities from UK, Perwin and Silvertree. And it was not an accident, actually, because I made really sure during like a year long process that our financial partners for that next period of growth actually express the same sort of values as we express. So I met like really 50 different private equities and met like very much corporate guys, and sort of, and also we fortunately in that world also exists a couple of guys that are pretty much like entrepreneurial, very close to our way of thinking, right? So that was the step first, basically, right? So having people, investors that actually express the same kind of approach, right? That are kind of easygoing. They know they like being lean, right? They like very sort of relaxed approach to communication, very open communication. So that was the first step. And then what followed was actually, adding to our team, to our leadership team, the new C-level people, which was facilitated by a couple of like recruitment agencies, but it was the process that was overlooked, personally by me. And those people are really chosen, very carefully chosen to the company by me, with the help of obviously of my colleagues in the company and sponsors. That's, I think, is the first step really to maintain this culture, right? So you have to have, in terms of culture, I mean, it's really the people first, right? People first, that shape then what kind of process you have, right? And I think we just make sure that, that on an ongoing basis, that our kind of concept of that we are promoting, that, marketing team may be lean, may be effective. I mean, that kind of lean approach is really something that we internally really believe in too, right? So being lean is about basically having, as little process as possible, right? So we only have the only necessary kind of things that should be in place to make makes the thing run, basically, and go, right? So that's the second thing. So investors, leadership, like lean process, and also because the culture mindset is so important. I say this is, I mean, I'm having the ownership of that, right? So that I think that I have delegated so many things to the new kind of leaders, right? Being responsible for sales, marketing, people, product. And I think that my primary responsibility right now is to own the culture and make sure that this culture runs through this company, the same way, the same culture is running through the company as it was running, before. And this is I think the only process that I'm really taking care that it's fully fledged, right?
Yeah.
So the culture process, the process of running, spreading this purpose, value framework across the business is the only process that I think is not just an MVP, right? It's something much more fully fledged.
If you reflect back to those earlier days of SALESmanago, was there a pivotal moment to which you'd attribute your success?
There were, a couple of moments, right? Like this. First moment was that we set up this company without any, say, like global ambitions, right? What we thought at the beginning really was we were very humble and very modest. And I think that it's still the case today. We thought that, what we want to do is just to earn the lives for our families, and let's build a software and sell that basically, to a couple of businesses in Poland. And I think that the pivotal moment came when we realized that, hey, maybe why don't we try, taking that outside of Poland? But we never actually thought about it as kind of global expansion or something. We met with a couple of partners and kind of naturally, really, organically, it was growing on us, it was growing on us. And we thought that these international markets are are wonderful, basically, right? Because we sell in much easier way. They understand, in Poland, it's still like, I don't think that in Poland till today, I think a lot of businesses are buying software because they want to buy software, right? And in the international markets, it's all about like really value creation, what kind of value we are creating for those companies, and we thought that it's so easier. It's so much easier, to operate within that kind of framework. And that's this kind of international markets were really idea was pivotal for us. So, and that's where we became, international kind of business, right? And prior to that, I would meet a couple of guys, and like even we were quite well noticed in the Polish scene, and a couple of private like VC funds would be coming and meeting me and Konrad, and they were always asking about this international expansion. And we would say, no, we sell only Poland, and they were like kind of looking at us like it's a bit strange. Like, you guys are not ambitious at all. So maybe we are not ambitious.
What do you think are the three most important things that you've learned? You talked that where your focus has been, particularly around culture, but what have been the three most important things you've learned, do you think, over the last 10 plus years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that what I have learned, that what basically, yesterday will not work tomorrow, right? So scaling the company is not just about, multiplying. It's never about just simply multiplying the stuff, that you were doing earlier, right? There has to be some transformation kind of part to this, and redesign of the process, right? So that's the first learning. The second learning is, that maybe it's a more like personal, I would say, story. I think that, you have to adapt really yourself to what's, going around, and the methods for management I was using, early stages, were, kind of taking people by the hand, and, like kind of sort of police kind of stick methods kind of to deliver execution were working pretty well at the beginning, right? When you are a founder and so on, and suddenly you have to adapt to completely new space where you have to take this leadership role, and that has to be really, really, support. You have to, just founders find, I think it's not just my case, but I think that a lot of founders find it extremely, extremely challenging to enter that new role where suddenly they have like senior leaders, and that requires a lot of energy and effort. It's very rewarding, but it at the beginning it might bring a bit of pain, right? And the third thing is that you can't run. I think that what I have learned is that you can't run a business if you are not taking care of yourself, basically. So, I mean, if your like family life is wrong, if your friendships are wrong, right? Suddenly coming in to the office and expecting that you will be a great leader, that will never work, right? And I think that it's this kind of intimate, it's the most probably intimate thing, right? That a lot of founders would tell you, but they are not telling you because it's so intimate, how it all kind of works for them, right? This kind of setup, the private life, professional life, right? And then at the end of the day, it's really what comes out of that kind of context is the learning that businesses are not really about like just purely about KPIs. I think that some leaders are attracting specific, characters, people that are, people are coming to professional positions. They're coming to work. And I think that I think a lot of them are not just here for money. I think that they are kind of looking for the missing piece in their characters. Right? I think that it's not about KPI, because it's about like very intimate relationship between like the leader and what sort of stories they tell, right? And what sort of stories the people want to listen to, right? And it's completely different across different organizations, right? So that's the third learning here.
Reflecting on that balance between, all the different dynamic parts of your life. I mean, I'd read that you'd enjoyed over the last 5 years 3,000% year-on-year growth, or 3,000% growth over the last 5 years, which is phenomenal. And I've no doubt that as a consequence, the demands on your time are plentiful. How do you stay on top of those demands? How do you manage your time?
So I have this kind of approach, tight but loose kind of calendar. So I think I work very hard, but I try to use my day, to the sort of benefit of, my family, because I have wife, I have 4 kids, and so it's quite a busy family life. And then I have also some personal needs. I need to go to get some, fresh air, run every morning and read something to like really to develop personally a little bit. Right. And then also have this kind of big challenge around business. So honestly speaking, I'm not getting really too crazy about, say, business. So I have, for example, when you look at my calendar, it's kind of looks quite hectic, but Wednesday is like free, right? I mean, for me, Wednesday, for example, is always a day I have this is like a time for my really silent work, right? So I'm just completely avoiding meetings and Zooms on Zoom meetings, any types of kind of, interactions on Wednesdays, right? This is the day I want to use to really, make some progress, right? And to deliver like the real work, sort of to call it that way, which probably most of you will not agree. But yeah, I'm trying to be really always available. I'm kind of laughing at my friends that, if a friend is calling me, we can, we should meet. I mean, it's for me, it's like just a priority. And I never put it back to like like next week or next month. I would be like crazy to do that, I think.
Well, I think, though, that you make a really good point around taking that time out. Not that you need my endorsement as to how you manage your calendar, but that you take that time out. The thing that strikes me is that we place such virtue now in society on doing, but less so on thinking. The perception is that, if you're sat reflecting, thinking, and as to your point, doing the real work, right? Thinking whether it's strategically as to the future direction of your company or whether or not it's just trying to solve a complex issue, you need that time to step away and just think about it. Once upon a time, if we look at the great philosophers, there would have been great virtue, great state. You're standing in life as a thinker. We even created statues around these people, right? So, but now if you're not doing something, people assume he's not doing anything. What's he actually doing? We place great virtue on doing. So I think it becomes incredibly difficult to actually take that time out, and all credit, I'm sure you're benefiting greatly from doing so. The thing that struck me about the profession that you've embarked upon, marketing has changed, I think, so dramatically. I mean, arguably so have all areas of business over the last 20 years. But I guess how for you has the industry, if you go back to, and again, I am going to put your expression, but printing brochures and attending trade shows, you look at where marketing is today, that shift is exponential. What's changed for you in marketing over the last 20 years, do you think?
Yeah, so transformation in marketing, in my opinion, is hugely facilitated by the transformation of business. And what I think that what triggered that change is and what made that change really serious was the fact that suddenly we had internet, online business, and that started to that internet and online kind of activity started to really influence all the kind of sales and marketing processes, right? And with that, suddenly you would have disrupted the old processes, right? When marketers suddenly came in, especially because marketers, I think, noticed that they start to gather like some significant data around, what's happening in business, in marketing, in sales, right? And then basically marketers started to be able to use that data and like seriously affect decisions and make those decisions that really data driven and not just like some kind of intuition really based, right? So that's the first thing. And then when this data obviously appeared, right? And a lot of tech businesses, tech companies appeared to help marketers in that, in that new kind of world, right? Which were also kind of driving the whole kind of taking the whole industry forward, right? And today, what we see is that marketing team is basically they have the largest IT budget at their disposal, right? Because everybody is investing in marketing, so really making sure that this kind of demand gen engine is properly covered by tech investments, right? And I think that also that completely changed the kind of structure of what the marketing job is. And when I was starting, I was telling this kind of crazy stories about what the mission of my business, really, believe it or not, 10 years ago, was that when there is a problem on the market and the problem in the company, and when the CEO and managing director want to cut the costs, 10 years ago they would fire marketing team and marketers first, right? And my ambition was that maybe we can change this. And really, just like a couple of weeks ago, I have seen actually some research that it's suddenly this is what happened, right? That with the onset of recession, suddenly there's like official research that probably with the onset of recession, probably firing marketing team and reducing marketing costs is not the best thing you could possibly do, because if you can do it wisely in recession, you can actually you can really reinforce your position. And as Ayrton Senna once said, this Formula One driver, is that when it's raining, you can take over like 20 drivers at one time, right? When it's sunny, basically you can't do it. So this is the approach that started sort of I think it starts to be maybe more visible. And what I think is that also, which is my observation, is that when we were starting, those marketeers that were buying our software were like really positions, kind of junior specialists in marketing teams, kind of crazy guys, sort of early adopters. They wanted to kind of deal with data, deal with personalization, and it's my probably one of the best feelings I have is when I see those guys today being like CMOs and they sit at company boards, which is also something you would not imagine really 10 years ago. You would not see many, or if any at all, a marketer on like official company board, right? This is like today is just like a standard really, way of approaching stuff in business.
What developments in marketing, or what technologies are you particularly excited by at the moment?
So I think that what's exciting about tech in marketing is that it's constantly evolving. So it's the space where completely different than, for example, like ERP software, business intelligence, where things are stable. The owners of that technologies within companies are kind of serious people, taking our process not very. I mean, I don't think that anybody is expecting too much sort of change or transformation in finance. Of course, it's happening, but it's just completely different dynamics than in marketing, where marketing, is about really responding to, all the opportunities that appear in the market. You have different behaviors. Suddenly you have COVID, people are behaving differently. That can be sort of addressed by technology. You have right now inflation stuff, right, going on. And I think that also that again, this can be addressed by applying some technological solutions. And e-commerce is actually a space where all those things are happening. And I think that what CMOs are buying is not just current stack that you have, but actually what you plan for the future. What's the future? How you see the future? And I think that they when they make decisions about platforms they deploy, it's always about really looking at the future. They're very open to innovations. And I think this is what took our business forward so much over these years, because I don't think that if we would start in any other segment 10 years ago, we would be capable actually of catching up with the already well-known competition. And this is what happened over this last 10 years with SALESmanago, is that when we were entering the market, we saw these international competitors, other players on kind of customer CDP, marketing automation space. They were very very developed. And I think that in this 10 years, which is not only we sort of reach their level, but I think that we have built capacity by working very closely with marketing teams. I think that we have delivered a couple of stuff, which I think is quite innovative. And what makes me really excited about this space that we are in right now is obviously the capacity of around three things: the capacity of technology to build like really intimate relationship with the customer. So it's, we all know that these third party cookies are gone. We know that everybody's right now focusing on first party data, which means like transactions behavior on the website. But the real trick is how to gather the data about preferences directly from customers, which are called like zero party data. And this is the tech we excited about in SALESmanago, right? And that's one thing. The second part tech that I'm really excited about, and we also working on this is the technology that will help marketer to take better decisions and just save their time, right? So we call it like growth intelligence, which is, I think it's about investing in the right place, in the right group of customers, and also ability to test and optimize the process they have so really enabling these marketers to work smarter, not just harder. And this can be done by a lot of like AI tools that support the decision making processes that happen in marketing teams.
So what does the future look like for SALESmanago?
So the future is I think is something that we believe might be very interesting place for SALESmanago, and what is happening on the market, and what is the evolution in thinking of marketing in the thinking of marketing teams. I think it's hugely beneficial to our kind of value proposition and our vision of what marketing should be about, right? So I mean, let's say for example, just noticed a week ago, I noticed a piece of research published by one of the specialist marketing research agendas, saying that 95% of marketers expect IT to own the marketing ROI, right? So what is happening? What does it mean? Well, it means actually today that marketers are basically constrained by the resources which are delivered to them by their IT teams, and they say, okay, if you are blocking our growth, then you should take. If IT team is blocking our growth, then we should you should be also responsible for ROI on marketing and like marketing based basic success. What we say, I mean, we don't believe that might happen, that IT will take responsibility for marketing success. We just create a software, and we have a software that makes marketers fully independent, right? And there are a couple of things you can do around software. It's like it's no code, it's really self-service, doesn't require this really involvement of IT team, and you can achieve that in many ways, right? To make this, and that makes these marketing teams really own the marketing result and have like impact on that marketing result, right? So that's one thing, right? That just kind of really important in terms of the future. The second thing is that another research and just whatever, we all feel that the era of growth at all costs is over, right? I mean, something that is our mindset as being lean, right? And our company, just to say, we should repeat that, was built by bootstrapping, so we were always lean. So we are not telling all those marketers just a bullshit we don't believe in. We just think, I think it's the only way really of building the company. It looks like, today in this kind of recession looming over, everybody preparing for recession. It's this kind of approach of being lean is absolutely valid. And, the way that our software is built, and also the fact that by being in Poland, we have definitely some cost advantage, right? We can help those marketing teams reduce their costs, right? That is playing really along. This is playing very well in terms of looking at the future, right? And also we just our target market today is this mid-size online store, right? And I think that mid-size online store, when you look at this TAM, total addressable market we have today, it's really thousands of e-commerce businesses in Europe, right? And I think that you will find like many businesses that are within that segment, basically, that are making fantastic progress despite recession, and despite some very difficult times that we are kind of perceiving today. Yeah, so I think that we will continue our growth, basically, and we are quite optimistic about that.
So what does success mean to you?
Wow, that's a very, very, very interesting question, I would say. I have been thinking about that, many times recently. And success is definitely not reaching some like state, right? I mean, I don't think that I'm driven by. Of course, you can look at success from corporate, like personal. I would maybe take this personal stage, which personal kind of side, which is I think impacting a little bit how we look at the organization and the culture. I think that the success is not definitely something you dream about when you start creating business, right? My intention. I don't think that works in business or that works in sport, right? So I don't think that the greatest kind of sportsmen, for example, that win the Olympic Games in some sport, they wake up and they say, okay, I will become like world champion or like gold medalist or something. I think that what is driving us and what success is actually, the fun of waking up every day and making, small progress, right? And being on that journey, this is the success. I think that, that if you look at how the businesses are built, is that. And if I look at other successful entrepreneurs, they're quite similar. I think that they just like coming to work, making, doing hard work, right? And making this kind of small progress, this marginal progress, adding little value here and there, and just saying, that things are changing. I think that this is what I would believe a success is, right? And the result is kind of side effect, basically, which means you might be a world champion, but you might be not as well, and it's still fine. It's still driving you. It's triggering positive emotions, running dopamine in your brain, and all that. So this is how I see success. It's nothing really. I'd say that material as would perceived by many people.
So who or what inspires you?
I think I'm inspired by, I can be inspired by, university professors and some authors like philosophers, which I like a lot, but also I can be inspired by, having a conversation with a taxi driver. So I'm not limiting myself, really. I don't think I would see like just a role model that I would just like follow. Not Elon Musk, not Bill Gates, nor Steve Jobs. I'm not this kind of guy, right? I think this is something that still remains in me. It lives in me, from my childhood. As your first question was, who inspired me? This was the people that I have around, right? And I think that this is what I think that you can take really a lot of exciting, inspiration from just looking at your neighbor, what the guys are doing, right? Just observing, just the close relationship, or your kid or a cat. I don't know, right? My cat, a cat gives me more inspiration than Elon Musk, really.
I think societies we create these kind of almost like demigods. So we put them on a pedestal. And undeniably they in a material sense and in terms of wealth creation, all those kind of very valuable things. There's people that have by measures achieved the extraordinary. But I think that, to your point, extraordinary means different things to different people, and those inspirations come to us in all sorts of ways every day. I want to go back just briefly, if I may, to reading. You mentioned that literature was an early love, and obviously I appreciate you. I'm assuming you still lecture. You're a university lecturer yourself, so study, I guess, is in. But do you have time to read? And if so, what are you reading currently?
All right. So currently, I've been in love for many years with Hungarian literature. There's a guy Sándor Márai, and I read probably everything that he wrote. Very nice diaries. It's great literature. Quite. It's actually funny. It's a funny story around that because when I was turning 40, I have a friend that is like literary critic, and I asked him once, can you recommend to me some reading stuff for my middle age crisis? And he asked me a question. So do you want to get out of it or you want to go deeper into that? I said, of course, I want to go deeper into that. Right. So, and he said, okay, so Sándor Márai, right? So it's this kind of story. And I read all through that, and my, middle age crisis, never appeared actually, but it was just a great inspiration. And I think that I'm less into fiction. I like kind of really diaries, some kind of shorter forms to read. My wife, for example, she can read 600 pages of some, fiction. And I'm not completely not into that story. So I have Seneca on my, to be honest, I'm not even joking, right? It's this, right? I'm reading Seneca, kind of letters from the Stoic, which is actually recommended to me by my coach. So I think that sort of to quiet my mind a little bit from time to time.
Well, I think the thing that impresses me about Stoicism is that, Marcus Aurelius and those guys, they were writing that stuff thousands of years ago, right? So there must be something, there must be some truism to it. The fact that it could sustain through all that time, there has to be some value. And I suppose always a question I'm intrigued to ask. We sort of reflected on this in terms of lessons learned. You alluded to the fact that perhaps you're not necessarily that inclined to look backwards. You're looking forwards a lot of the time. But what advice might you give 18-year-old or even 21-year-old you?
I don't think really I would, don't change anything, just enjoy your life, right? It's not just continue going what you feel, continue doing, what you feel, it gives you like a little bit of pleasure, right? I think that we are all just today too much kind of driven by, achieving success and those people are, I'm seeing my teenage boys, right? And I'm just this, and I think I'm telling them what I would tell myself when I was 18, right? Kind of similar stuff, right? I mean, I don't think that probably they should really be too much into, think about their professional career. I mean, they have just beautiful time of their life right now, and probably they should just make sure they take as much as they can out of it. So I don't think I would, as I said, I'm not really this kind of person. I'm grateful for anything that happened, right? For crazy father I had, which which influenced a lot of of my life, right? And that's just kind of positive. I would never think of really giving any advice that would be sort of different from that would take me into a different path. Maybe there's one thing I recently start to listen to a very exciting podcast by professor of Stanford. His name is Huberman. It's Huberman Lab.
Andrew Huberman.
Yeah, and Andrew Huberman, and I like recently, what I thought really to myself is that if I were to choose another kind of study, I would become a neurobiologist, right?
Interesting.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
What led you to that conclusion? Do you think there's that correlation with studying around human behavior and understanding what makes us tick and informs our decisions around, even if you look at marketing and using data to inform decisions? And I've always struck me as well, I guess, the part that intuition has to play and where all that stems. I agree. Fascinating stuff.
Yeah. I mean, understanding my drivers, how I behave, what triggers me, right? It's so complex. It's so complex. And I think that understanding that might be hugely valuable to, kind of any of us. I'm really thinking that this kind of mechanisms should be taught at kind of primary school, really. Yeah. So we all know why we behave sometimes, a certain way, right? And how to basically managed it. It's like, it should become like, I don't know, like just, pedestrian kind of knowledge, probably.
Fantastic. And Greg, where can people go to find out more? I think is it salesmanago.com is the URL of your company. Is there any? Are you on socials? Where if people wanted to find out more about you, where should they go?
So you just go to LinkedIn and ask me anything you want.
Fantastic.
I will always reply.
Fantastic.
But obviously, yeah, just salesmanago.com, some stories, some videos there. I published 2 books already about like marketing automation and data-driven marketing. They're available in bookstores. So yeah, that's kind of the way to interact. And then
we'll get some links in the show notes for the listeners, and they can access those books as well, which will be great. But Greg, it's been terrific to talk with you today. I really appreciate your time. I think SALESmanago, you look at that evolution of marketing and marketeers and the integration with data and how that's informing decisions around businesses. And to your point, taking marketing from being historically a cost center to a real revenue generator. It's a fascinating story. It's a fascinating journey, and clearly a business that's going from strength to strength and will continue to do so. Wish you well in all your endeavors. Really appreciate your time, and I wish you well for the future.
Yeah, thank you, Lee, and same to you.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening to today's Extrology podcast. I really appreciate your audience and ears. If you've enjoyed it, then why not hop onto iTunes and give us a review? I'd really appreciate anything that you might have to say. Any feedback always gratefully received, and look forward to hosting you next time. See you soon. Just a reminder, today's podcast is brought to you by Progresso Talent Partners. Visit www.progressotalent.com today for more information.